Right. Let's go check out where these turf wars have been happening.
Whether or not you already have your Monster Hunter Guild card, Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin stands on its own as a great JRPG. It's accessible enough for newcomers to enjoy, but with intricate mechanics to keep a more experienced audience engaged. It's also a beautiful love letter to the Monster Hunter series and presents an imaginative world I can't help but dream about just existing in, as dangerous as that would be. Unlike Monster Hunter's action-focused gameplay loop of hunting, crafting, and then hunting some more, Wings of Ruin plays like a tried-and-true JRPG that can be enjoyed even if you didn't play the original on the 3DS. Its introductory tutorials are incredibly well-paced and well done, and it carries with it many great changes from the original, but some are, unfortunately, a bit of a letdown. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin features turn-based battles, deep customization systems, a copious amount of side tasks, and a heartfelt story. It translates the classic Monster Hunter formula well, except instead of being a hunter, you're placed into the role of a rider. Riders primarily befriend monsters, though they still make them into pants out of necessity too, resulting in a party-building mechanic somewhat similar to Pokemon. This includes your rider too, who has armor and weapons to craft and equip. Each of the 6 weapon types have different mechanics, skills, and damage types, and being able to switch both weapons and monsties out once a turn without losing an action makes switching a viable, necessary tactic and method to keep things from getting repetitive. Turn-based combat is focused on a rock-paper-scissors format with powered, technical, and speed type attacks, with each monster species favoring one of these types. Wings of Ruin includes more intricate mechanics in a majority of battles than its predecessor, with monster parts to break and readable attack pattern changes rather than seemingly random ones. If a monster becomes enraged or otherwise changes its appearance, odds are it's going to change how it attacks, giving you a heads up on how to counter. Much more satisfying decision-making than memorizing a dubious pattern with variables like we had to do for the original. Overall, I appreciate the combat changes. They make battles engaging, thought-provoking, and more reminiscent of classic Monster Hunter. Like how attacking Kuluyaku's rock with a blunt weapon will break it faster, or hitting it with a flash bomb will make it drop entirely. Eventually though, the length and tediousness of battles against your average overworld monsters began to wear on me. Even though you can triple the animation speed, thank goodness, and use a quick finish function when facing something significantly weaker than you, which was generally only useful when backtracking. It makes sense in a Monster Hunter context for battles to be hard-fought, but for a turn-based JRPG, the idea is a little bit less fun in practice. I avoided fights a lot. Thankfully, grinding specifically for XP generally wasn't necessary because going after monsters for armor and doing side tasks kept me naturally leveled up, and under-leveled monsters get a huge XP boost. While Stories is right there in the title, the one told here isn't actually Wings of Ruin's main draw. The cutscenes are often thrilling visual spectacles, and there were plenty of surprising moments that made me gasp, laugh, and even get a tad emotional. But this is primarily a lighthearted story that isn't anything groundbreaking. The story held on just enough for me to stay invested, but the actual gameplay gripped tight and never let go. I wish I had an endless amount of time with Wings of Ruin because it's filled to the brim with fun activities, and I wanted to do everything it threw at me. While I easily spent hours doing optional tasks at the quest board like trials and multiplayer quests, which pair you with an NPC if no one is around, the world outside is vast. The scenery in Wings of Ruin's open world hubs and dozens of side areas is beautiful, and just exploring on the back of my favorite monsters is a treat. The improved fast travel system can take you to any caravan stand or town from anywhere too, making backtracking much easier. While exploring these open areas and completing quests, there is a near never-ending stream of distractions like new monsters, rare and challenging royal monsters, the ever-enticing rare monster dens, and even more. The procedurally generated dens where you find new monster eggs are the most important of the lot because they drive my favorite part of Monster Hunter Stories, hatching and customizing my monsties, of which there are more than 80. There's much more to a monstie than just its species. Each one has 9 potential slots, which can be filled with passive and active abilities called genes. Each species can hatch with only a handful of certain genes, but some genes are rare and powerful, and since any gene from any monstie can be transferred over to any slot on another with the right of channeling, duplicate monsties tend to still have a use, and there's a huge variety in how you can customize your team. The eggs you can get are determined by the monsters found in the area around them, with patterns cluing you in on which, and their smell and weight hinting how rare its genes could be. Anyone familiar with gacha mechanics will know the drill here, but without the microtransactions and artificial scarcity to drag it down, this system feels genuinely rewarding. No matter the quest, the monster collection and customization mechanic had me searching for rare eggs and happily spending hours tweaking my team. It's a fantastic system, but it also has one oversight I have a huge gripe with. You can't see an individual monstie's full stats like you could in the first Monster Hunter stories. You can only see an individual monstie's best and worst elemental stats, which I assume is tied to the seemingly overall simplification of elemental stats in Wings of Ruin. Even if that is the case, it's still baffling for a JRPG, especially when monsters can be born with stat variations and genes that make it no longer match the stats represented in Wings of Ruin's version of the Pokédex. It's even more frustrating that an NPC straight up told me that monsties attack with their strongest element, not their natural one, and to reference this Monsterpedia to see it. But this will just be wrong for some individuals with specific stat bonuses and genes, at least early on in their life. Each monstie has sets of elemental defense and attack stats on a scale of 10, and the rest are now the same and comparatively neutral instead of variable like in the original and classic Monster Hunter. However, you can change a monstie's elemental type if you increase that stat enough with the help of hatch bonuses that aren't kept track of in-game and genes. However, I'm confounded by this system too. I can reliably do this for most level 1 monsties easily, but once they get up to around level 15, they lose the new typing. Look at this Kutku. It has a huge boost to its thunder attack, but it still reverted back to a fire type after reaching only level 15, even though its fire attack is only rated a 5 compared to a 4 for its thunder attack in the Monsterpedia. I wish I could see its stats to see if that's the reason, and if this system can even be strategically useful. Even if it wasn't, maybe I just want to rock a red Kezu with icy blue lips. But as of now, I haven't figured out how to get a high-level monstie to change attack elements, but maybe I'll figure it out eventually. It's not like Wings of Ruin is that hard, and its combat is more dependent on decisions made in battle than a monstie's minutely different elemental stats. My worry is that the stats might matter more against other genetically modified beasts in PvP, which I wasn't able to try ahead of launch. Minor oversights and frustrations certainly wore away at me over the 80+ hours I spent with Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin during its campaign and beyond, but the journey was well worth taking despite the frequent grains of sand in my shoe. Its mercifully free, gacha-like monster hatching loop is always exciting, and its combat and customization are both accessible but still intricate and rewarding. Its story is enjoyable if a bit cliche, but exploring this gorgeous world from the backs of my favorite monsters is an absolute delight. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin is a beautifully presented JRPG with a plethora of fun things to do and deep systems I happily got lost in, but a few issues leave it short of being flawless. For more on Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, check out our Beginner's Guide to Monsties, and for everything else, keep it here at IGN.